Hi there friends, welcome back to my channel and welcome to my very first video for 2019. I must say I'm quite excited about this year. So as you could see from the title of this video, I'm reviewing this book over here, which I'm sure everybody knows about this book. I posted it on my Instagram and literally everybody had something to say about it. So yeah, that's what we're doing in this video. We're reviewing this book, but it's going to be very short. And after the review, I have a challenge to tell you guys about. It's a challenge that I'm doing for myself, but I'm really hoping that this little literary community that we have here on YouTube, on my channel, I'm hoping that you guys will join me for the challenge. But more on that later on. Let's get into this review. So I feel like every single time I do a review, I kind of like warn you guys about the kind of state of mind that you need to be in. I think that is quite important though, because some books you need to read when you are feeling, when you're feeling stable. So for instance, this book is the saddest thing I've ever read. It is honestly so sad. So the warning is, before you read this, just to make sure that you are stable and you're happy within yourself. And yeah, otherwise don't read it all at once. Read it in small bits. This is just like how I felt about it. It's very sad, very devastating. I found myself just like in protest in terms of just how sad things were, how much devastation can one country, can one group of people bear, So that is the first warning about this book. Okay, so the story. What is this book about? So the book is based in Afghanistan between 1960 and 1990. It follows two protagonists, two main characters, two females, Mariam and Laila. I know I might be saying those names wrong, so please excuse me. We are introduced to both characters while they are young. So for instance, with Mariam, we are introduced to her when she's about 14, 15 years old. And she's living isolated from the community with her mother because she's an illegitimate child, a harami. And this is like the worst thing that could ever happen to a child, pretty much, in the Muslim community, because you are just like excluded from the community. So this is Mariam, and this is where we meet her, and a series of things just happened to me. You see, I'm too identified with these characters. A series of things happened to Mariam that are just like so devastating. So there's a lot of loss, there's a lot of rejection, there's a lot of tragedy that happens in Mariam's life. Eventually she gets married off to this guy, Rashid, who's 20 years older, and she leaves her hometown. Rashid is a very complex man, and he is abusive, and more so because Mariam cannot carry her pregnancies to term, and therefore cannot give Rashid his sons that he so desires. So that is Mariam, and that is the kind of life that's the kind of life that she lives. So we are also introduced to Laila while she is very young. I want to say she's 8 or 10, but I might be wrong. But she's quite young, and we are introduced to her as this carefree girl who is born to the dad is liberal, encourages her to go to school and make something out of her life. Another thing worth mentioning is Laila has this sweetheart, Tariq, who she's absolutely smitten with, and yeah, it's just like this beautiful young romantic story that happens between them. But again, there's so much devastation and loss that happens in Layla's life that at some point she only has one option in order to survive, and that option is to marry Rashid. And Rashid, like I said, is the guy that is already married to Mariam, so she becomes the second wife. And you can imagine the tension that happens because the tension that occurs between Layla and Mariam, just because Mariam is this woman who can't give birth, and Layla is young and she is able to give birth. So when they first start living in the same house, there is like tension, they do not get along, but eventually, because of the kind of things they go through together, they form a friendship or even a mother and daughter relationship, I would say. So that is the story. And as you can hear from the very short snippet I've provided you, there's just so much that happens to these two characters. It's unbelievable. I kept asking myself, just like, how much loss can this group of people bear, you know? So you must remember that the story is happening during this war. It's like one war after another in Afghanistan, and a lot of the tragedies and losses and pain that these two protagonists go through is because of the war that is happening. Yeah, so that's the story. Although I think the story does become slightly monotone because it's just like one bad thing happening after another, I still think it's worth reading. I think it's worth reading because the author is really so stellar, and it's actually incredible how he's able to take like these very, very sad things, this very, very sad story, and yet make it so tender and so delicate and so beautiful. Like, it's such an oxymoron, really, that beauty can exist within such devastation, you know? But I think the author really manages to do that, and it makes it actually a slightly easier read because of his ability to do this. So I think it's definitely worth reading because of that. I think it's worth reading because of the characters and how he builds the characters. I really love how none of the characters are like 2D. Like, he really brings the characters to life, and we know not everybody, people aren't one thing, you know, even with characters like Rashid that you completely hate, you know, because of his abusive tendencies and just like what a horrible person he is, there is still like some humanity that he manages to shine through, even though this character is so problematic. So it's, yeah, man, it's really, really worth reading. So for me, the other thing that makes this book really worth reading is the fact that it's historic. It's a historic novel. It's based in Afghanistan, like I said, and it's based during the times of, you know, the wars that happened there. For me, I'm interested in those kind of things. I like learning about different countries, about different communities, how communities live, and most importantly, how communities survive. So that made it worth reading for me. So obviously, in summary, you can tell that I'm for the book and I really, really recommend it. And yeah, but the only thing, like I said, just make sure that you are ready to take in all this devastation and tragedy. And the thing that makes it even more sad is the fact that these events are true events. These things actually happened. I mean, the wars and the historic timeline, these things really happened. And the fact that these stories could be based on what actual people went through, you know, during that time. That's what makes it really, really hard to read through. The fact that these are most likely true encounters of what happened during that time. So one last thing I want to say about this book is, I was having a discussion with a friend who's Muslim, and she had slight issues with the book just because, she felt like the author might have written the book to appease a Western audience. Because if you think about it, a lot of the things that are in the book are very much like stereotypically negative in terms of how people perceive Muslim communities. So in that regard, I kind of get where she's coming from. And I wonder if this is something that the author thought about, because, like a husband being oppressive and abusive and, really controlling of the women. I feel like that's a stereotypical negative thing that we are told about the Muslim communities. Sure, there are other things that he presents in the books that are not stereotypical, but I found, like, in hindsight, actually, majority of the story does play into that. I don't know what you think, but also at the same time, I'm thinking, who has the right to write what story? Yeah, it's really a huge discussion, but yeah, who gets to write what? Is he really playing into this thing and just writing a book to make millions out of it, or are these actually things that he heard about? Even though he's in the diaspora, I'm sure he's had conversation with his parents and family about things that happened during that time. I don't know. It's a really delicate discussion, and I'm interested to know what you think. Is this a stereotypically negative story about Muslim communities and Muslim people? I don't know. It's very hard for me to decide, and perhaps there is no right answer. It's just maybe something we could all think about. I mean, I think about these things as a writer, but also at the same time, I don't like being told what to write about. I've got agency. I'm able to say what I want to write about, and I'm able to determine that for myself. So yeah, it's hard. It's a long discussion. Anyway, I just thought I would add that as part of this review. Okay, so that was the quick review. I hope you enjoyed it. And to all three people who have not read this book, I highly recommend it. Pick it up, but just make sure you are stable. Oui, ça va. Très bien. Merci. I don't know why I just spoke French. Okay, so let's move on to the challenge. So, I've noticed that I tend to get into a rut in terms of like the kind of books that I read. So I will mostly read like South African books. I will read books written by West African authors, African Americans too. So this year I just really just want to broaden my horizon and just challenge myself. I love learning about other countries via narrative, via novels, via writing, via books. So for instance, with this book, I got to learn a lot about Afghanistan, and I did my own research too. So with that in mind, I thought that this year I'm going to challenge myself to read 12 books by 12 authors from 12 different countries, right? So for instance, I know I want to do more Southern African authors besides South Africa. I want to do Botswana, I want to do Zimbabwe, I want to do Mozambique, I want to do East Africa. I don't know why I'm looking there when I should be looking there. I want to do East Africa. I want to do North Africa. I want to do, European authors and whatnot. So for instance, I've already started reading this, and it's a book by a French author, and it's delightful and it's different and I'm enjoying it. So I do recognize that there will be like a lot of trial and error. I'll start a book and I really won't be into it, but I am still going to challenge myself to read 12 books by 12 different authors from 12 different countries. Obviously in between I'll be reading like my regular things, but this is the challenge for this year. So I'd really love for you to join me, and I feel like if you guys join me, you can keep me accountable, I can keep you accountable, but of course we can like all learn and discover new things about different parts of the world and just like get into different narratives, so if you are wherever you are from, please comment down below, let me know if you'll be doing this challenge, but also let me know if there's like a book that you highly recommend from your country. So if you are from any of the countries that I've just mentioned now or regions, please let me know and recommend a book, and maybe I will read it and maybe we can have good old discussions about it. Can you tell I am so excited about this challenge? That's it. And you know what the dealio is? If you are new to this family, to this literary family, please subscribe, hit the bell, the little bell, the notification bell, so that you get notification, you get word when I upload, and like if you really liked this video, and spread the word. I'm at I think 192 subscribers, so if we can get it to 200 by the next video, that'll be exciting. Okay, enough with all of this. Thank you so much, take care, and happy 2019. Ciao.